Okay, everyone, I see it's 11 a.m. on Friday, April, help me out, Kirk, 17th, I guess, today.
17th, yep.
My name is Keith Mullen, and I am the Executive Director of the NSBA. It's my pleasure to welcome you here to our NSBA webinar series, which is ongoing virtually every other day, every other business day, that is, since the pandemic has struck. Today, our guest is Kirk Westgard, who's the Assistant Deputy Minister for Economic Development with Trade and Export Development, Saskatchewan. And Kirk, aside from all those fancy titles, is a great guy and is here to answer any questions you may have. And so I'll just point out before turning it over to Kirk that we would encourage you to ask your questions. You can do one of three ways. You can do through the chat. If you move your mouse across your screen there, you'll see a ribbon appear at the bottom, and you can ask a question through the chat portal. You can ask a question through the Q&A, or you can also raise your hand under the, and I'll see that under the participants panel, and we'll get to you, and we can unmute your mic as well if you want to ask a question verbally. So just be aware of those particular opportunities for you. And without further ado, and I guess we're going to do a little bit of a different presentation today because Kirk, with his limitations with respect to some of the challenges he has, I'm going to be the PowerPoint guy, so he's going to be guiding me. So if there's a little bit of a glitch between some of the communication today, that'll be the reason why. So without further ado, take it away, Kirk.
Okay, thank you, Keith, for the introduction, and thanks everyone to join us today. And, you know, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to speak with you. You know, we are very grateful for forums like this and associations like the NSBA that give us this opportunity to talk with small businesses about what they're hearing and how you're doing during this complicated and uncertain time. I'll start off by letting everyone know that working for the government of Saskatchewan, we are fully committed to helping navigate the challenge the province's business and employers are facing as a result of this pandemic. I can tell you that the Business Response Team, or BRT, was just created on March 23rd, 2020, with the knowledge and information in mind that we want to try and cut down as much confusion as possible and have a single landing page that people can go to get the information they need when they need it and as quickly as possible. To let everyone know, I've asked Keith to send out the information of the Business Response Team if you don't already have it. And we're open from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, taking calls at that time. And we also have an email address that's available. We only do run the emails from 8 till 5, but if you email us, we'll get back to you hopefully within one business day. I'll let everyone know that this team was established in partnership with Trade and Export Development and the Ministry of Ag, but we work very closely with our partners in other government agencies and industries to try and help, you know, bring as much focus on what's going on in the general public and with small and medium businesses through parks, culture, sport, public health officer, as well as agriculture. So what we're doing, or what we're meant to do, is provide assistance navigating uncertainty. Primarily, we provide information on conditions of the current public health order, specifically the definition of critical services and allowable businesses under the order, conditions under which businesses are allowed to operate, restrictions for non-allowable business, as well as information on quarantine and self-isolation requirements for businesses. Although we'll never speak for the federal government, we do provide all the programming and try and answer all the questions we can provide on federal government programs. So we have up-to-date information as it's released by the federal government on the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, the wage subsidy, and the emergency business account loan. Why we're here today is we want to talk about, specifically concentrate on the Saskatchewan Small Business Emergency Plan that provides a grant to businesses or not-for-profits directly ordered to temporarily close or substantially curtail operations through the public health order by the Chief Medical Officer to help control the transmission of COVID-19. At this time, Keith, would you pull up the website so we can kind of show where it is, and then I'll walk through some of the information on what is the small business emergency program that's offered by Saskatchewan, and then I'll take any questions after that. So the program provides a payment to eligible businesses that can be used for any purpose, such as paying fixed costs or reopening the business once the public health order is lifted. Knowing that this program is the first program that the province has come out, besides all the other deferrals that have come out before it, that it is not a catch-all program. We know that it does not help everyone. We're trying to help as many people as possible at this point in time. And if it does not fit your business, we're happy to take your recommendations or suggestions on how we can either enhance it or change it under advisement. So the program provides a payment to eligible businesses. I went through that. The payment is based on 15% of the business's monthly revenue in either April 2019 or February 2020. The businesses can select either of those months to calculate their payment. The maximum amount payable is $5,000 per business. To be eligible, a person, partnership, cooperation, cooperative, or not-for-profit registered under the Business Names Registration Act, the Business Corporations Act, the Non-for-Profit Corporations Act, or the Cooperatives Act can apply. They have to have a permanent establishment in Saskatchewan, fewer than 500 employees, have been carrying on a business in Saskatchewan since February 29, 2020, and apply before July 31st, 2020. They have to have been ordered to temporarily close or significantly curtail operations through a public health order to help control the transmission, have experienced a loss of sales revenue that affects the applicant's ability to pay for fixed costs, and attest to reopen the business operations within 90 days following the cancellation of the COVID-19 public health order, and have not received any payments or amounts from any other sources, including insurance, to replace or compensate for the loss of sales revenue other than the amounts from the government assistance programs. The Saskatchewan programs are both administered by the Ministry of Finance, who are working very hard to serve the clients as quickly as possible. So if you want, you can call the business response team for questions or have questions on this. But if you want to ask the people who are actually processing the payment, Finance has both contact information out, and they can be reached toll-free at 1-800-667-6102, or if you're in Regina at 306-787-6645. They have a call center that will take calls from 8 till 5, or you can email them at ssbep@gov.sk.ca, and you can talk to the people who are doing it. For those who have looked at this program, I want to let you know how impressed I am with my colleague Cami Colpitz and her team, who put this program together in a very short amount of time. They've got it through legislation and are making payments as early as yesterday after opening it up on Monday. So it's just been a fantastic effort by that team in Finance, who have worked well together to start flowing money to businesses who need it right now. To let everyone know and to make sure it's clear that if you are applying for any of the federal programs, you can still apply to the provincial programs, and all federal programs are stackable with this provincial program. Like I said, we know it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for the complex programs Saskatchewan business or problems that Saskatchewan's facing, but we want to provide everyone with as much accurate information and timely information as possible. If we don't have your question or a solution to your question, we'll get back to you and we'll try and find it out for you. So if we go through the application, and if you look at the application form, this program was created and processed for ease of use and quickness of transmitting money to the businesses that are struggling at this point in time. My understanding is people are spending about 6.5 minutes on the application process to apply, and they're getting paid within the standard payment time or expected payment schedule of 5 days. Now, that may change depending on the number of applications and how many people are being or submitting applications at any one time. But Keith, if you scroll down, everything on this application is quite straightforward. It's quite, logical to the business, and it shouldn't take that much time. It's about 1.5 pages, 2 pages at most, and it's pretty simple to get on there. How does it stack with the Sarita 5K? Sorry, I saw that pop up, and I can tell you, if you received money from Sarita, you can still apply for this, but you'll have to check with Sarita if their program is stackable. The government of Saskatchewan will allow you to stack this program on with any other money that you've already received. So that's really it. We're still working hard. We still want to receive as much input as possible from the business community. So if you have comments, questions, or suggestions on anything that we're doing, we're more than happy to take it. We're here to help you guys out and serve the public. So let us know what you think. That's pretty much it for the business application. Is there any other questions I can take at this point in time? Keith, I kind of lost you there. What can I help you with?
I'm here, Kirk. My apologies. I was just looking through my ability to see people that are on the call, and I do see a hand up. So this is going to be a new one for me, Kirk. I'm going to allow them to talk if you're okay with that. There's going to be a question coming to you from OFAS.
Sure.
And I see OFAS, you're muted. There we go. Ask your question of Kirk, please.
I asked it in the chat and it was answered.
Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, I see another one here in the Q&A, Kirk. If there's any difference for a charity application.
A charity application. Let me see. I think, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can get back to you on charities. I know we've looked at it before, but I just can't. I'm sorry. I'll see if I can text someone right now. If we can move on, I'll see if I can get an answer during this call.
Okay. I'm just looking for more hands. I don't see any at this time. I guess some of the questions that I've heard, Kirk, are, with the percentage of it being for a larger company, a $5,000, 15% amount. So I'm thinking in terms of the hospitality industry, for instance, that's, as you probably have seen, there's a, or maybe not being Regina based, but there's a front page article in today's paper, Star Phoenix, about the challenges that the hospitality, particularly the hotels, are having in terms of paying their property taxes, which are tens of thousands of dollars a month. Do you think or foresee there being any point in time that the provincial government will be looking at expanding a program like this for a larger company?
I think there's always the opportunity to look at what expansions are needed as we continue down the road of this pandemic, and to determine on how long it will take to get back to, as I would say, a quote unquote, as normal as process or normal as economy as possible. We look at any information that we can to see if programs are needed. Now, there are some federal programs out there that might help businesses or larger businesses, the Canadian business loan grant that's up there, the wage subsidy. I know that the federal government is working on a new commercial lease program right now. It seems to be it's going to come out as a loan, but the criteria haven't been set or released to the general public yet, or the province. So as that new federal program comes out, it would hopefully be able to help those larger businesses.
Okay, thank you. Still encouraging people to, use either the Q&A format, the chat format, or to raise their hand, and we'll get to your questions if you have any.
Keith, sorry. So the information I have for nonprofits that they do, or charities do qualify if they have a revenue stream. An example is if a nonprofit has a restaurant like, the Italian Club, they still have to meet all the other eligibility requirements. What I would say is I'd encourage them to apply if they think they might, as the application is very simple, doesn't take very long, and they should be able to get an answer right away. So if in doubt, apply.
And I see we have a question on the chat, Kirk. Do you want me to read it for you, or you can see it yourself? How would you prefer?
I can't see it, so if you want to read it out, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Question coming from Connie. We are a nonprofit organization that closed our offices and went to remote working arrangements. We were not ordered to close, but did so based on the advice of Chief Health Officer of Canada. We've lost revenue, but are still trying to support vulnerable people from our remote work locations. Do we qualify?
Once again, not to kind of pass the buck on this one, but I sure would apply. I would never want to give you an answer right now that says you don't qualify, because I'm just not in the position to look at it. So apply and see what comes out of it. I'd encourage you to do so.
And I would add to that, Kirk, in the sense that, as you know, we've been heavily involved with a lot of communication with your department and yourself and others within the provincial government. And I have to commend you and your colleagues, and certainly the government themselves, for their willingness to work with the business community. Like, it's not just us, it's our colleagues around the Saskatchewan Business Council table and so on. But we've been impressed by the level of communication and just the back and forth, the true consultation and listening is taking place. And so when I hear you say that there's a good, you don't want to dissuade them from applying, I would tend to think that would be a good opportunity, and that it likely would result in a favorable outcome, because I've seen nothing but willingness to help on the part of the government with the business community. So it's much appreciated. So I guess a formal thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I'm in a very fortunate situation that I've got a great team of people I work with, and I know it's cliche to say the government's here to help, but we really do we know how important that every small business is in Saskatchewan, how much they add to our economy. We know it's very trying times. We know there's frustration out there, but we are wanting to connect people to the right information so that we get through this together. For the people who are reaching out and don't know what's available to them, either call the 1-800 number that we have, or give us an email at supportforbusiness@gov.sk.ca. And what I do to everyone I talk to is I also have my personal information, because I'm a public employee, that my name and phone number is out there, available to everyone. I'll give you my cell number. It's 306-539-6804. And of course, my email address in the government is just my first name dot last name @gov.sk.ca. And if I'm not able to help you, I'll get you in contact with one of my many colleagues who are a lot smarter than me and know a lot more. And try and provide you the information you need to get the help that's out there and available.
Thank you for that, Kirk. Maybe just because I know that you're referencing the federal programs a little bit earlier and recognizing that they're not your jurisdiction, but you do have a high degree of knowledge in terms of what the programs availabilities are. And I know that you were just involved with a similar type of webinar yesterday where there were federal representatives on that call. What can you say about so yesterday's announcement in terms of the Seba, in terms of the ceiling being raised and the floor being lowered from the ceiling is up to now a $1.5 million payroll, and the floor is now a $20,000 payroll from what was a $50,000 payroll. Do you believe that that's a result of what the feds are hearing from provinces like Saskatchewan, or how is that negotiation or communication happening?
Absolutely, and what I've seen, and you know, it is an unprecedented time that Canada has never gone through something like this, nor Saskatchewan, of course. But as we roll out programs, we do want to continually take in information to make sure that we can provide as much help as possible. Now, we do not have an endless stream of money, so that's why we're working with both provincial and federal programming to see what's available and hook it up, hook it to or create linkages to the businesses that need it. I think that Seba was a fantastic example of the feds listening to what's being said out there, taking some advice from the businesses that need it and making those changes. Now, with Seba, I will also say that there's still some frustration out there about what banks are providing the loans and which are not. So if you hear that your bank is not providing a loan, check with another one. I know some small credit unions are not participating yet, as well as one of the big 5 banks is not participating, but the others are.
All right, we have a question through the question and answer forum here, Kirk, which says, the tourism sector is one that is hard hit, and to have positive effect as we emerge out of this period, the lead time to secure large commitments is long. So any plans to provide supports to this sector? For instance, Tourism Saskatchewan just announced it has postponed all marketing support of events and festivals, and this seems counterproductive to the midterm plan for success.
Absolutely. There's been lots of discussion on the tourism sector, and we know in Saskatchewan, especially in our short summer months, that it plays a very big role in how our economy goes. We've had discussions on it. We're contemplating programs, both ourselves and the federal government, to work together to see if there is something we can do. What I would say with Tourism Saskatchewan, and I'll never talk for them, of course, but you know, as we continue to look at our recovery and coming out of this time to more of a stable economy and a growth economy eventually, is that they'll be there to support the industry.
Great. Okay. Thank you. We have another one that's come up, which says, any chance, if you're aware, if part-time people are fully covered under the 75%? So that'd be the wage subsidy program, it looks like. And
so a part-time worker for the 75% wage subsidy, I don't have that information. If they would like to email you, Keith, or email me directly, I can look into it and get an answer. We do have contacts at the federal government and can probably get something out to you quite quick.
Okay, that's a good point. So as we've seen expansions with the feds and their programming and how they're rolling them out, do you foresee expansions, maybe not in terms of a percentage basis, but rather in terms of a term length of time in terms of the wage subsidy program, like with the way that the rollout of the economy is anticipated to be measured and very safe and secure and so forth, and phased in. Do you think that there's a possibility of the wage subsidy extending beyond the 3-month term?
The federal wage subsidy? Absolutely. Yeah, I think it will all depend on how the economy is and how quickly we can restart the economy, not only in Saskatchewan, but in Canada. So I think both the provincial government and federal government is taking all sorts of advice at any time, not only from businesses, but chief medical officers to let people know if we do have to change program parameters. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's all up for consideration still.
And again, I'll ask you another speculative question, because based on today's information that, or rather it was yesterday's with respect to the rent agreement or rent subsidy program that the province, or rather the feds are considering, but it is going to involve, once again, the banks as well as the provinces, because it falls under provincial jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. You know, what do you envision here in terms of how this is going to be managed? Like it's yeah.
You know, that's a great question, and you know, I'll put a little of my frustration out there that the federal government has done a great job of announcing programs, but without any details or criteria. So it's causing expectations to come out in the business community that are unfortunately can't be answered at that time. As we continue to find out and learn about the details, it's probably slower than what anyone wants. Right now, it looks like in the last I've seen, it could be in the form of a loan for from the federal government again.
Yeah.
But you know what information I have had or inputted into the discussion would be, I would like to see it as a straight transfer from the federal government to the provincial government, and then the provincial government work on providing money, cash to the companies as they need it, and in an expedited manner, and probably in a grant form rather than a loan. But that was just my opinion, so I've put it up there, I've put it through the system, and we'll see how the federal government responds.
Yeah, that's a good opinion to have. It's in lockstep with what I think too, Kirk. We have another one here in terms of Q&A from Shad. The not-for-profit and charitable sector is reporting significant loss of revenues from donations as well as earned income. Any plans to shore up the sector so they can respond adequately and on a timely basis to the anticipated increased demand for support?
Like I've mentioned earlier in this conversation, is that they can apply for the Saskatchewan Small Business Emergency Program, as well as I do believe that the federal government has provided some information on the non-profit and charity sectors that I can't remember at this point in time what they're providing. But yeah, we're continuing to monitor all businesses, non-for-profit and profit, to ensure that we try our best to include everyone.
You bet. Okay, another one from Rebecca. Would home-based daycare businesses be eligible for this program?
For the Saskatchewan Small Business Emergency Program, yes, they are.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that's what I mean. I guess just another reflection of the kudos that the government has been receiving. Our colleagues at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, which of course is a national organization, but with local chapters, or I'm not sure what they classify their local affiliates, but nonetheless, Marilyn Braun-Poland, who sits on the Saskatchewan Business Council with myself, has said how the CFIB is pointing to the Saskatchewan Small Business Emergency Payment Program as the program for other jurisdictions to follow. And it's the best that's out there so far, and there are very few that are out there, and very few that are, it appears, very few provinces that are willing to match the adaptability and flexibility and just extensive coverage that the Saskatchewan Small Business Emergency Payment Program has. Okay, so another question that's come up. A unique opportunity for government, NSBA, and other parties to provide training and advice to business owners on decision-making, business reload, and restart up. Might we see some of those coming soon and over time? So I guess training and advice to business owners on how to restart.
I think there's been a few associations that are coming out with a mentoring program. I know that the Regina EDR, Economic Development Regina, is looking at a mentoring program to provide advice on business restart, as well as the other big associations. I think KPMG, M&P are also looking to provide advice. So I think we could take it under advisement if that's what's needed. I'm sure we'd like to look at it and see what is out there right now. And most times government doesn't want to get in the way of business. So if business is already delivering and providing that advice, we'd like to see that continue to move forward.
That's great. Thank you. I'll just maybe encourage our participants once again to consider if they have questions with regards to any of the programming that we were showing originally on the Saskatchewan government website, or if there's COVID-related questions that you have specifically to a sector or industry. I would encourage that type of question as well, and even a technical or practical question for Kirk on the application process itself. Would encourage you to ask those questions as well, because I feel that Kirk's been very helpful and accommodating in our requests, and I don't know how much longer he and I can carry on this banter without calling it to an end. And so that's why I'm encouraging the ongoing communication from those that have any questions, because there's a high degree of, we call ourselves the pipeline to the government. This is an exact example of that, in the sense that here you have someone who has answers and who has connections all the way through up to the feds and PMO to help you with some of your concerns or problems or questions that you may have. So here's that opportunity. I wouldn't want you to forego it just for whatever reason. Please feel free to bring your questions forward. So Kirk, you mentioned maybe one more in terms of, I see another question's popped up on the chat, but before answering that one, I'll just ask you the question that you mentioned that the payment program is very quick and right now anticipated to be within a week. Do you know if plans are to ramp up the business response team to accommodate that 1 week kind of window, or will businesses perhaps see a bit longer of a time frame for any funds to be flowing?
You know, we can't consistently monitor that. The business response team doesn't actually process the applications for the emergency payment, the Saskatchewan emergency payment, but you know, we're in close contact or daily contact, what I would say, with finance who's processing it. And
Great.
Within the first 3 days, we had about 4,000 applications. The first available day to process it, they did almost 2,000. So I haven't seen the numbers yet for today, but as we continue to get applications, and if there are, if there becomes a big lag, I'm sure we'll rally as government, knowing how important this is, to add processing capacity to that program.
Right, exactly.
So for the individual who said that they're waiting for payment, if they want to reach out, I'm more than happy to follow up and see where you are.
For sure. Okay. Okay, we have another one that's come up through the Q&A portal, and it says, I think the largest question about the emergency program is really about the timing of payments. And I know that you, Kirk, indicated some payments have already started, but I guess that's the one that's talking about still waiting patiently, and others are in the same position. So yeah, so okay, sorry, I just realized I'm asking the same question you just answered, so it's all good.
That's okay.
Okay.
I just saw one.
Pardon me?
I just noticed someone sent in a question, but it was too quick. I couldn't read it.
Oh, that was the one that that we just answered.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it says some payments have already started, but this particular company applied right away and have not heard back. So they're patiently waiting. And this person knows that there are others in the same position. So yeah, just you've addressed that, and I expect that we'll see more in the coming days in terms of money flowing. And that's the other thing too. I heard that the federal loan program, the $40,000 grant, which what's that one called, Kirk? Again, that's.
I was just on it. Saskatchewan. Where is it? They all have emergency response benefit. Nope.
No, it was a federal one that that provided up to $40,000, again administered through the banks, and up to $10,000 or 25% of it could be forgiven if the loan was repaid in full by December 31st, 2022. But I've heard that money is actually flowing already as well, so that people are. That's
the Canadian Emergency Business Account.
Yeah, that's
the one that changed yesterday, and as you know, things are changing rapidly. We're getting new information from the federal government, and they've changed their programs quite a bit too. So we try and keep everyone up to date. So if you are on our mailing list, as new information comes out, both on federal and provincial programs, we try and send it out within a couple hours of receiving it, so that you don't have to go and hunt for it as well.
That's awesome. Okay, we got a question that's come up through the chat. Any advice as to what business that is currently curtailed or closed can do now to prepare for the time when business restrictions are eased to make that transition easier?
I don't think I'd be in the best position to tell a business how to get ready to restart. I think there's people that have a lot more experience in business than I do and a lot more knowledge. So I would reach out to people like Keith and the business associations and the Chamber of Commerce to get advice.
Yeah, and I think that I guess a comment that I can add to that is so the Business Council has a recovery subcommittee that's been struck, and like we really want to emphasize the safe and methodical phased in approach, so that because we recognize that history dictates that there will be a second wave of the pandemic, and the last thing that we want to be perceived as is, in terms of the business community, as being the reason for that second wave, because it's a natural occurring phenomenon that will happen. Certainly it would happen more expeditiously and harmfully if we were to re-engage in commerce and restart the economy in an unsafe way, and without this care and consideration given to how to do it. So I guess to that point, Kirk, I would expect that under the guidance of the Chief Medical Officer and the health authority and so on, there will be protocol and guidelines that will be requirements for business depending upon the sector and how the employees are situated and or work together. I would expect that there would be a fairly comprehensive list that would be quite comprehensive for all sectors of the economy. Do you think that would be a fair assessment or assumption?
Absolutely. I think the Premier this week has come out and was very clear that turning back on the economy is not just a flip of the switch and it's everyone back to work. It's a very pragmatic, staggered approach that will balance the economy and safety, not only for the business, but also the employers and employees that have to operate that business, so that we don't see that huge spike or second or third wave that is being talked about. I think it will be a very gradual back to work, but a very pragmatic one that will see the economy being able to restart in a timely way. We also know that when you're restarting something, you can't just turn it on overnight, that there's going to be some lead up to some industries, getting people back to work, getting people back trained up if needed, if they're new people. So, we're taking all that into consideration. And I know we're feeding up as much information as we can to the people making that plan, but it seems like they've got a good handle on what we want to do that balances, once again, the economy and safety for all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And we're going to support, the safe and efficient return to the economy, and anything that is deemed to be unsafe or unhealthy or not best practice. We're going to do everything that we can as a lobbying organization and with our affiliates around the Saskatchewan Business Council table to ensure that business will not be seen as a bad guy here, but rather the savior for what this province needs at a very challenging time. So that's really our goal.
Yeah, and I think Saskatchewan is in a wonderful place right now. We've got a very diverse economy, and we really did flatten this curve, it looks like, to be able to get back to business as soon as possible, knowing that we do rely on the rest of the world for what we do here in Saskatchewan. So we need to come out of this in a global way. Yeah,
absolutely. So I can't believe no one's asked a question, or we're probably going to close here, Kirk. There's a couple of nice compliments that I'll share with you in a moment, but I can't believe no one has asked what you and I were talking about prior to coming live with everybody. When are the golf courses going to open? What's going to happen there?
We're working very hard. Throughout this whole process, although there's been some anxiety and some frustration by companies, I think the associations like yours and others have been very good, including the Golfing Association, to come together and work with government to find the best possible way to get back to business. So, being a fan of golf myself, as well as being in the outdoors, I'm hoping sooner rather than later, we get back to to being able to go outside and enjoy Saskatchewan in the summer, because I don't think there's a better place to be.
No, you and me both. Absolutely. Okay, I'll just maybe do a last call for if anybody's wanting to ask any more questions. Just see more compliments, and so maybe I'll begin with that close that I have for you, Kirk. We have the fact that the lobbying with the feds on the commercial lease program in the form of a grant is critical, and I can't stress that enough, and it's coming through our chat that that's a critical piece, because we've all seen and heard the talk about the loan situation just being essentially kicking the can down the road, or that bomb waiting to explode at the end of the tunnel when we're just kind of getting to where we think we might be on the path to recovery. Then there's all this debt that has to be dealt with and incurred. So that's just not going to be the answer that we're looking for. So continue to carry on down that path. And also a confirmation that golf courses are definitely an essential service. I couldn't agree more. And I see we do have a question, so that's great. So from Rebecca, she's not sure if this is the correct venue for this question, but do you know if the government of Saskatchewan has any plans to mitigate the negotiated raises for Crown corporations to offset the effects of the pandemic on the economy?
No, I got to tell you, I'm not involved in those discussions, and I'm sure they're having discussions. This is something new, and I think everything's being looked at right now. So,
great. Yep. Awesome. That's great. And a thanks for answering that question. You're welcome. Yeah, these webinars are really quite the thing. I'm just quite new to them, as we all are, as the world has changed before our very eyes. And just seeing the direct immediate response from people is quite fascinating to me, and I appreciate everybody that's contributed in that way, because it makes it for a much more dynamic and engaging presentation. As dapper as Kirk is with his mustache and looking with the mustache wax, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and as engaging and as brilliant as he is, and the conversation that I would love to carry on with him, it's much more engaging when there is an interaction with our members that are attending by participating in the webinar. For those of you that are presently on the call, or on the webinar, I should say, and want to refer this to others, we do post all of our webinars as recordings on our website as well. So there will be a link available that we'll post very shortly, and we also will be continuing our webinar series as mentioned at the start. It's every other business day. So on Tuesday, April, I believe that's the 25th. I think we actually had a late change in programming, so we have yet to actually finalize our presenter for Tuesday's webinar at 11 a.m. But I do know on Thursday, the 27th, we have Complete Technologies. Chris Fostner, I should say, with Complete Technologies, is giving a presentation on cybersecurity is the topic of his presentation, and that's very critical in this time of everyone working from their home office and relying upon their own home Wi-Fi and security network that might be a little bit easier to compromise than what might be at most people's office, but hopefully not. But we'll hear tips on that on Thursday the 27th. So Kirk, before turning it back to you for final comments, I'll express my thank you to you right now, and your appreciation for the hard work that you and your colleagues at Trade and Export Development are doing on our behalf. And I have to tell you, and we just had a board meeting this morning, and I mentioned it in there, in terms of if people have an opinion of bureaucrats as being, and I'll use a term which I haven't heard, but we do know that there are stereotypes out there that some people assume in terms of being, lazy and just red tape managers and so on. Like, I can assure you that is nowhere near the case with you and your colleagues, and I can't express our gratitude enough, Kirk, for all the hard work that you and your colleagues are doing. And I know you and I spoke last evening, and I know we've had other evening conversations, so it's not a 9-to-5 job for you as it is for many of us these days. So I just appreciate all the hard work you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate the comments. And, my last comment would be that reach out to us. If you're having trouble finding something, reach out to me, reach out to the staff I work with. We'll help you along, and we hope we get through this as quick as possible so we can get you guys doing what you do best, and that's making Saskatchewan strong and you guys earning money. So we'd love to see you on the other side of this.
All right, you bet. Thank you very much. Oh, I just got a correction. April 21st and 23rd for the next webinars. I maybe misspoke earlier because I don't have a calendar in front of me. I'm going by memory, and that's not the best, the best at times. So once again, thanks to Kirk Westgard, our tremendous guest today, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. So have a safe, happy weekend, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
All right. Stay safe.
You bet.
Bye.
You too, Kirk. Bye-bye.